And now it's my turn. For this month's topic, I did a little survey to find out the most boring IT topic possible with a mission to make it interesting and relevant. Unfortunately, software licensing won, so we're going to go with the runner-up, IT acquisitions. I know, boring, right? Well, maybe that's the problem. I'm not saying that almost the entire industry is doing it wrong, but, well, how about I just don't say it? Here's the thing. Nearly everything you dislike about most of your IT environment is probably the result of bad acquisitions planning. And while you may have had no say in that acquisition, and while you may simply be suffering from the results, it's important that you be able to articulate the problem and an actionable solution to the people who do make the decisions. Become a partner to them and help them understand the situation. For example, most acquisitions come down to one basic thing after you've factored in things like what features does this software have to have? Price. And while price is important, it's certainly not the most important criterion companies should consider. For example, what about training? This happens to me all the time as a curriculum director for Pluralsight. We get a customer asking if we have a course for such and such, some tech product I've never heard of and have to Google to learn something about. The customer will tell us that they simply can't find education for the product, and I feel terrible for them. But the problem really goes back to the acquisition. You see, too many companies just ask the vendor, "What training do you have for this product?" And that shouldn't matter. After all, if the vendor is the only one interested in teaching their products, then there probably aren't a lot of people using that product. And if there were, there'd be third-party training out there for it. So you have to ask why so few people use the product. Should you be using it? And if the vendor is the only one offering training, what happens if they stop doing so or go out of business? That's a concern. The existence of a robust third-party education market is one sign of a healthy product with a broad ecosystem. And another concern is updates. Look at the product's existing prerequisites, like database servers, operating systems, and so on. Assume that every prereq will be outdated within 5 years. What's the path forward? Does the vendor force you to move to a new version of their product when you also need to upgrade a server OS? And what's the cost? How hard is it to do? Or will they continue maintaining their existing version, the one you're buying, across newer operating systems so that you're not stuck managing some legacy OS that's no longer supported by its vendor? There's no right or wrong answer here, but it's important to know what you're getting yourself into. Will you be stuck supporting legacy code for a decade or two? Are you okay with that? Write those answers down so that future generations will at least understand that a decision was made. And I think that's a key here. I'm not saying you can't make a decision that you know down the road will have negative consequences. When you do that, you're simply taking on what's called technology debt. And like all debt, it has its place in the world. It's not inherently bad. But just like most financial debt, you should write down what debt you're taking on. Just acknowledge it. If it's, look, the vendor has a track record of tying new product releases to new OS versions, so you have to upgrade everything at once. We know we never do that, and we understand that this means we'll be supporting a possibly end-of-life OS and end-of-life application. We accept that and the costs that come with it. Just be truthful to yourself about what's happening. As an IT person, you may hate that this decision was made, but ultimately, it's not your company, right? You're not taking the financial risks of running the company, meeting payroll, paying benefits, and all that other stuff. So all you can do is your due diligence. Point out the downsides and let those in charge make the decisions. Just document those decisions. Not as a way of being able to say, "I told you so," later, but so that later generations can understand that the situation was discussed and this decision was made. If the decision includes some mitigations, look, we're doing this right now and we know it's a bad idea, but we believe there will be something better on the market in 5 years and we're hoping to move to that. We'll document that too. That helps everyone remember why the decision was made and what the longer-term plan was. Don't let that decision become fragile institutional memory that nobody remembers in a year. And, getting back to criteria, what's the vendor's situation on security? How many of their developers carry secure coding certifications? Can they show transcripts that their developers have continuing education for secure coding? Do they have any way for anyone in the public to report security flaws in their product? And do they have a documented process for dealing with those? These are basic questions, and while a salesperson can lie about them, you should get them in writing, along with the right to audit the vendor's records for compliance with those statements. But Don, you say, you don't understand. We're special. Our industry is special. You just can't do this. Yeah. Funny thing, I hear that from literally everyone I talk to. So either everyone is special or nobody is, and we're all just unique. And the actual fact is, nobody asks the questions. It's not that your industry is special or your company is special. You're not even asking. Nobody uses the availability of training as a gauge for vendor ecosystem health. Nobody asks about upgrade and future-proofing policies. Nobody asks for written statements about security procedures and policies and a right to audit a vendor's compliance with their own policies. And because nobody asks, nobody gets it. Sure, you might be the first to ask, and the vendor might have to do some hustling to come up with something, and they might just say no. But get that no in writing. And while you can't take a stance on every acquisition, you should make a stand on those where you can and where you have options. I'm not speaking from an ivory tower here. I know how hard it is to go through the acquisition process. I know how political it gets, and I know it'll never be a perfect situation. But it'll also never get better unless we push our leaders and they push our vendors. We have to agitate for that change, even if we don't get it right away, because without that agitation, we definitely never will. Of course, that's just my perspective. I hope you'll share yours with me via Twitter @ConcentratedDon. Thanks very much, and that's the conclusion of our show. I hope you'll join us next month for more of Pluralsight's IT Ops News and Talk. 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 Ops News